Hello, everybody. All right, so we're off and running here a little bit. Um, Hope everybody's having a happy Tuesday to everybody. Hope everybody's having a good day today. Today is Tuesday, September 26th. So we're just a few more days. Saturday will be the September 30th, and then we're almost into October here, into the month of Halloween and all that. So let's see. We're just waiting for a few people to come in. Hey, Shadowhawk. Mike in the chat. Hey, Shadowhawk. Um, well, now that we do, as always, guys, if you haven't already, if you can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here. That would be appreciated. Also, if anything grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Well, now we do have somebody in here, aside from myself, of course. I guess I can go over um, what's on. Probably get started a little early here and go over what's on tap for tonight. So tonight I'm going to go over 3 articles from Bounding into Comics. One of them is a follow up to something we talked about last night. I don't know if some of you had heard, but there's a YouTuber named Dane who's apparently going after Chuck Dixon, uh, trying to get him canceled, claiming that Chuck is an anti-Semite. Eric July and Vox Day are responding to that situation. That's the first article we'll go over tonight. Also, in the world of comics, of course, Steve Orlando's prediction comes true. Steve Orlando was one of the guys who was predicting that the Scarlet Witch series would only last about 10 issues. So that looks like that's happening. And Mr. Tom King is once again running his mouth and putting his own personal political ideologies into his writing again, as he's basically trying to turn the Wonder Woman series into an anti-Trump book. So that's what we have on tap for you. Of course, we also have the wrestling wrap up and this day meets history. Let's see. As always, of course, feel free to comment and or ask questions if anything grabs your attention. And if you haven't already, you can like and share the stream and see if we can get some more friendly people here. That'd be appreciated. Uh, all right. So with that, why don't we go ahead and get started then? Um, since we did kind of get into it a little early tonight. So let's get into that first article I was just talking about. All right. So as I said, as a follow up to what we were talking about last night, here we go. All right. Eric July and Vox Day respond to attempts to cancel Chuck Dixon. Article by John F. Trent, published yesterday in the books and comic book section. So, Rippaverse Comics founder Eric July, aka Young Rippa 59, and Archaven Comics publisher Vox Day recently shared their responses to the attempts to cancel legendary comic book writer Chuck Dixon. As you guys know, Chuck Dixon is coming out with a book called Alpha Core, Core number 1, which is being published by Rippaverse Comics. Dixon was accused of anti-Semitism by YouTuber Dane of Actual Fandom. Not only did the YouTuber accuse Dixon of anti-Semitism, but he actively attempted to have Dixon canceled by encouraging his followers to contact Amazon in an attempt to have them stop selling Archaven Comics books specifically Dixon's Alt Hero Q series. Now, for those of you who didn't follow the story that when we were covering it last night, so he's basically claiming that Alt Hero Q is is basically a book about QAnon or Canon or whatever, QAnon. Okay, QAnon. Um, the conspiracy group, or he posted on Twitter an image stating, quote, Chuck Dixon, who again is writing at least one issue of a comic book specifically advertised by its creator, Eric July, as appropriate for kids, features his QAnon comic on Amazon's Kindle platform, which you can read yourself for free with a Kindle Unlimited subscription. Alternatively, you could contact Amazon to ask if they're aware that they're selling a QAnon promoting comic with no age restrictions, just as they sell Vox Days comics and merch to all ages. Hey, JR. Let's see. Hail, Xenu and Xena. Peace be upon them. Hail, Mike and Hawk. Hello. And as always, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, seeing if we can get some more nice, friendly people in here to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here catches your attention, feel free to comment and/or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So continuing on here, let's see. Okay, we just finished that paragraph. Let's see. July responded to this cancellation call on YouTube. Quote, here's what's going to happen, and you're going to have to get over it. Yes, we have people that the mainstream has deemed, I don't know, abhorrent, because maybe they have a view or two. Namely, it's likely that they support politicians or don't support the politicians that they think they should, unquote. He added, quote, here's what's going to happen and what you're going to have to get over. As far as this company is concerned, Chuck Dixon is about to be part of a campaign that is going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars, perhaps millions. And guess what? He gets a bonus in the event that it does. You're going to get his pockets lined up, and there's nothing that you can do about it, unquote. Yeah, basically, I think a lot of people are sick and tired of this cancel culture garbage. And anybody and this guy Dane is just the latest in a long line of jerks that that just doesn't get it. July continued, quote, they say some people want to go their employers. They want to get them to put off a certain platform. That doesn't happen over here. And you can't do bleep about it. And you want to know why? Because what are you going to do? In smaller quotes, well, we don't want the Rippaverse to publish that. who you going to go to? In smaller quote, well, go to the publisher. In smaller quote, I am the publisher. Oh, well, maybe we go to his distributors. Look at me. I am the distributor now. There's nothing you can do. Nothing. And they're going to have to get over it, unquote. He then reiterated, quote, there are people that have been very creative, and because they said something you don't like, you've deemed that they shouldn't be a part of like the bleeping comic book industry. Who are these people? They are losers, and this is why social justice activism is the bleeping tool and occupation of losers, because it unfortunately has been able to amplify people that are not only unreasonable, but it gives them some sense of importance that they have never got in their entire lives ever. Unquote. Ah. Again, this is of course in response to a YouTuber by the name of Dane's attempts to get Chuck Dixon canceled, just so you know. Day responded to the cancellation attempts on his website. Day wrote, quote, "Let me get this straight. Because the legend wrote a comic about an evil elite that engages in child sex trafficking, he is anti-Semitic." Well, if that's what Fox Day got out of it, okay, that does sound a little. If that is the thought process of Mr. Dane, Mr. Actual Fandom there, then I don't know. Maybe that's a little more projection than anything else. But anyways, quote. Now, isn't that an open and public admission that a certain group of people are engaged in child sex trafficking and satanic sacrifice, especially given the fact that the comic doesn't mention or imply anything about satanic sacrifice, unquote, he continued. They concluded, quote, anyhow, this is just an attempt to get Chuck kicked off Eric July's project, which isn't going to happen. What's amusing about this is that if Dane is worked up about all alt hero Q, he's going to stroke out on the spot if he reads the Legends Levin Cade novels. Yeah, actually, wouldn't that be interesting if one of these SJWs, in all their hysteria, just stroked out? We'd probably be a better off world if they did. He then shared a GIF indicating he had no intention of ending his working relationship with Dixon. So I guess here's a GIF. Cancel Chuck Dixon. I'm going to ledge even harder. Ah! Oh boy. To that point, they shared with Bounding into Comics the cover of Dixon's upcoming Conan novel, Caravan of the Damned. Caravan of the Damned sees Conan leading a large band of merciless bandits across the bone-dry wastelands of the Zwager, um, where he doesn't hesitate to attack even the most well-guarded caravans. In fact, Conan relishes the challenge, surmising that the greater the risk usually means the greater the reward. Yes, we even hear that a lot. Well, you hear that a lot in pro wrestling too, with the high flyers, right? The greater the risk, the greater the reward. So, however, some treasures might be too dangerous to keep a lesson. Conan quickly realizes after his bandits ambush a royal Turanian caravan to the court of um, Hadranor. Not only will the book see Conan leading his bandits on raids through the wastelands of Zawagar, but hidden in the sands of the deepest desert are horrors too dreadful for even the most fearless barbarian to imagine. Like some good stuff, huh? Is not. Dixon, who is no stranger to writing Conan, having penned numerous stories for Marvel Comics and in comic book form in Savage Sword of Conan, shared with Bounding into Comics what readers can expect from the second novel. Caravan of the Damned is set in the time when Conan was a desert reaver. Um, I wanted to challenge. I wanted the challenge of writing a story that was an extended chase. It's unlike anything I ever wrote for Savage Sword. Unquote. It's elaborated. Quote, the fun for me is restricting myself to the vocabulary and the writing form that Howard used. I don't want any jarring stylistic anachronisms to take the reader out of the story. If I've succeeded here, the story should read like it would have been perfectly at home in an issue of Weird Tales. Unquote. Paperback and ebook for Caravan of the Damned is expected to go on sale later this month in September. Well, we're almost out. We're today's the 26th, and they got like what 4 more days to get it out. They want to get it out by the end of September here. Ah, I guess 5 days when they did this, but anyways, a hardcover for Conan of the Caravan of the Damned is expected to go on sale in October. Right? What do you make of Eric July and Vox Day's response to these attempts to cancel Chuck Dixon? Short, sweet, and to the point. These clowns just should go stick their head in a hole somewhere and just stay there. Uh, we'll get on to the next article here in a moment. Here, let's see what. Let's see now. So let's see where are we at on time. Let's see, 18 minutes. Okay. Let's see. And again, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we get some more friendly people in here, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So moving on to this next article then, as we see here. Now this is another thing that we talked about previously too. This was following up a story from a couple months back, I believe. Steve Orlando's prediction comes true. Marvel Comics scraps Scarlet Witch after just 10 issues. I think we even covered that on here too, where we talked about Steve Orlando had kind of predicted that, Scarlet Witch might not get past 10 issues. You know, he was saying they were struggling to get to 10, they were hoping to do 15, but just hasn't happened. Article by John F. Trent published yesterday. So, writer Steve Orlando's prediction that the ongoing Scarlet Witch series would be scrapped at 10 issues has come. This is, of course, the current version of the Scarlet Witch comic. ComicBookMovie.com reports the series will end after its 10th issue, which arrives in comic book shops in November. The outlet states, quote, Marvel Comics has announced plans to end the current Scarlet Witch series with issue number 10, unquote. However, in order to hide the book's failure, the outlet reports that the series, quote, will evolve in a fascinating way in January for ultimately returning later in 2024, unquote. Orlando, so they're going to scrap this current run and then start up another one next year. Uh, People just don't seem to learn their lessons, do they? Orlando also stated, quote, and we're far from done. I can't wait for folks to see what we've been conjuring up next. Something that celebrates a massive milestone for Wanda and her family and explodes this current season up um, into something gonzo blockbuster and bursting with power. Wanda will return stronger, bolder, and more powerful than ever, and not alone. The book's cancellation comes after Orlando predicted back in June that it might get scrapped after 10 issues. In a now deleted post on X, Orlando responded to a query about the book's sales. He wrote, quote, sales are struggling alongside the whole industry. Right now, we'll hopefully get to 10, unquote. He then added, quote, to get even 15 issues, sales will need to continue to climb, unquote, which they haven't, and there's probably a good reason they probably haven't. Any of what we've been seeing from the big two of the past few years here is any indication, it's like that funeral dirge keeps chiming. The writer then speculated that the cost of comics might have something to do with sales across the industry struggling. Well, that's part of it. It's part of it. It's also the material putting out that people don't want to read too. He responded to a user who wrote, quote, comics are crazy expensive now. I'm all in on manga, which is much more affordable, unquote. Orlando replied, quote, I'm with you. Not that prices are up too. We're in a weird spot um, where folks in general keep wanting a higher and higher production value and paper quality, which is part, but all of it, of course. What makes this cancellation even more interesting that Scarlet Witch was at one time a top 10 selling comic book, according to ICV2's Comic Hub system that tracks point of sale data. Over 125 stores selling American comics around the world. The fourth issue of the book was the eighth most sold series back in April 2023. The seven titles that outsold Scarlet Witch number 4 were Amazing Spider-Man number 23, Batman number 134, Spider-Man number 7, Guardians of the Galaxy number 1, Amazing Spider-Man number 24, Venom number 18, and X-Men 21. The series was 14th on the most sold series by dollars, being bested by Batman 134, Amazing Spider-Man 23, Guardians of the Galaxy 1, Spider-Man 7, Avengers Assemble Omega 1, Marvel's Voices, Spider-Verse number 1, Amazing Spider-Man 24, Batman Joker the Deadly Duo number 6, Sins of Sinister Dominion number 1, Venom number 18, X-Men number 21, Immoral X-Men number 3, and Superman number 3. Try saying all that fast 3 times fast, folks. Let's see now. Alright, so let me see now. The month of April appeared to see the series move up on the charts. In March, Scarlet Witch number 3 was 13th in the most sold units and 22nd in most sold dollars. Scarlet Witch number 2 was 17th in units sold and in February and 12th in most sold by dollars. So it actually fell out in terms of dollar units, but seemed to go up in terms of units sold. ICV2 reported in January that the debut issue was the third most sold book by units, only being bested by Amazing Spider-Man 17 and Batman 131. It was the fifth most sold book by dollars, being behind Nightwing number 100, Amazing Spider-Man 17, Batman 131, and Batman One More Day Bane number 1. Let's see now. Looking at more recent releases of the series, saw it significantly decline on ICB2's Comic Hub system in May. Scarlet Witch number 5 was the 37th most sold book. It did not even chart in the on their top 50 comic books by dollars chart for the month. In June, the Scarlet Witch Annual number 1 placed 44th on the most sold book list. The $4.99 price tag also saw it bring the book to the 32nd on the top 50 comic book in terms of dollars by dollars chart. Scarlet Witch number 6 fell to 48th slot on the most sold book list in July. Like the fifth issue, the book did not chart on the comic books by dollars chart. So they have two ways they measure it. One is by unit sold, which basically means individual copies that are sold, right? Individual copies of the books. And then they have a dollar chart with how much money people spent on those books, right? Finally, Scarlet Witch number 7 jumped to 46 on the most sold book list. In August, it did not chart on the comic books dollars list. Not only did a book that had previously been in the top 10 most sold comics back in April get scrapped, but a book that is consistently in the top 50 for most comic books month to month is getting scrapped. Now, of course, it's consistently by units sold, not necessarily by money sold, which tells you something right there. What does that tell you about the state of the comic book industry? For one, it means that even books in the top 50 are not moving enough units at the $3.99 price point to seemingly justify the cost to make them. In fact, this is something that Kelly Sue DeConnick admitted was happening years ago. Yes, the same girl who said, "If you don't like my politics, don't buy my book." Speaking with Nerd News Daily with Destiny, DeConnick, alongside her husband, Matt Fraction, was asked, quote, "Did you think comics would be this sort of phenomenon that it is currently? I think we did talk about this interview before. She responded, quote, "Boy, that's hard because from our perspective, the industry has contracted and we're very worried about comics right now. So it's always interesting to me that the outside perspective is always, quote, comics are booming, unquote." Well, we know independent comics are booming. We know that like stuff like Chuck Dixon's Alpha Core, let's see, the Rippaverse, Cyberfrog, those are all booming, right? Thin Blue Line, those things are booming. Let's see. Fraction then chimed in, stating, Quote, I don't think I share. I think you're more pessimistic about it than I am. I understand the why of it all, but I also feel like, unquote. He would go on to discuss how comic book merchandising has blown up and how The Walking Dead and Scott Pilgrim were the biggest presences at San Diego Comic Con. And there's the lovely lady right there. Uh-huh. There's Miss DeConnick right there, folks. DeConnick would later add, quote, I think I tend to be pretty optimistic, but in this one, I'm worried. I'm straight worried, unquote. When asked why, she responded, quote, because stores are closing at a phenomenal rate. And that has, and I know Yellow Flash mentioned that too. Like, and we did see a story, what was it, a week or so ago, where, there was this one comic book store in New York that was claiming that like 58% of the subscriptions to X-Men were being canceled. So, let's see. In the independent comic sales, which I don't think is entirely true. I think they might. Mainstream comic sales are down, except for the top 3 or 5 books are up. Everything in the mid list is way down. Unquote. Quote, numbers that used to be numbers that would get you canceled are now like, quote, no, that's a hit. Independent books making the back the cost of doing floppies is like names that should be able to do it no sweat are going into the red on singles and not coming out until the trades. And it worries me, she elaborated. Unquote. What do you make of Scarlet Witch getting scrapped after and here's the thing about Kelly Sue DeConnick too. Like, she's one to talk in terms of because the whole attitude, if you don't like my politics, don't buy my book. Well, guess what, Kelly? That's exactly what people did. Exactly what people did. They took your advice. Now you got to try to. I don't know if you got to surgically remove your foot from your mouth or what, but anyways, I do have to make some lighting adjustments here, so I'll be back. But while I'm gone, of course, I'll put some music on, keep you guys entertained while I'm gone. Always, you guys can like and share the stream so we can get some more doing also, if anything here, grab your attention, feel free to comment, etc. I will try to Um, yes, I didn't necessarily need to close that up, I guess. Don't know why I did, but anyways, let me go back to comments here, see if. Alright, so, anyways, don't know why I closed that out, but, anyways, so we got one more article we're going to, of course, go through here. Try to blast through it as quickly as I blast through the others. And this is again another Tom King slam Trump fest, basically. Let's see now. We're 37 minutes. Okay. So, anyways. All right, so let's get into this. So, Wonder Woman writer Tom King, quote, I don't think there's a moment in history where women weren't having a hard time of it, unquote. Article by John F. Trent, published yesterday in the comic book section. So, Wonder Woman writer Tom King recently claimed that women have always been having a hard time of it while promoting the release of the first issue of the comic book series. So, according to Yellow Flash, what Tom King is essentially doing is he's basically trying to tie in some of the stuff Trump was doing during his presidency with the Amazons, or what the radical left was putting in, basically the idea of, basically of having a Trump like guy who's basically on the verge of expelling all of the Amazons from America, at least in the DCU. So, speaking with Comic Book Nation, King was asked the loaded question, quote, there have been a lot of significant ups and downs for women in the last few years all over the world. What was important to you relaunching Wonder Woman and what feels like a very pivotal point in history for women and female culture? Oh boy, pretty loaded question there. First, King responded, quote, Kelly Sue DeConnick has a great line in brackets for when people ask her why you write women so well. It's like the first thing I do is I pretend they're human. Okay, now mind you, that's coming from an SJW. They pretend they're human. Why not acknowledge them as human? Which I think has always been my approach. I look at this as I'm writing a character. I'm writing a fully fleshed out human being who happens to be one of the great superheroes. It's like writing Batman or Superman, unquote. The way he said that, you can just tell this guy is an elitist. I could honestly see this guy sitting in a bar somewhere, drinking up with his little comrades, buddies, and him saying the exact wrong thing that's gonna be heard two or three tables away by somebody who's not gonna care for what he just said and is gonna go over and pop him one. It's kind of elitist attitude. Okay, so let me go back and I pretend they're human. I think that's just an overall attitude that a lot of these SJWs just have for people in general, even their own kind. He continued, quote, all I want her to be as interesting and as cool as anything I could for Batman and Superman because That's the way she is, unquote. Next, King declared, quote, as for this particular moment, I don't think there's a moment in history where women weren't having a hard time of it. I don't know. It seems very consistent for the last 10,000 years or so. Okay, how are women really having a? There are more women. I mean, Kamala Harris is our vice president. Okay, I mean, this guy doesn't seem to have a brain. There are actually some women out there who are actually better off than I am. Okay, so this whole male privilege or white privilege or any of that baloney, you know, and then he claims to like be for women and all that, and yet well, can't really because I don't know if he's actually has said anything about transgender women in sports, but would I wouldn't put it past him considering his line of thinking, you know. Quote, what we're trying to do here, our agenda, is to make her as cool as her potential. Every little girl in this country grew up, thinking Wonder Woman was awesome, and I want to give them something when they're older that sort of confirms that the belief. Yeah, she was awesome because she didn't sit there and try to like impose her will on people. She didn't, anybody who knows, and I've talked about this several times on this channel when we've done our historical comic books, but we talk about Wonder Woman. It was commonly said that when Marston, a lot of what Marston was wanting was the idea of loving submission. It wasn't about just sticking it down people's throats. It was like, being humble and being, loving and being nurturing, being more of a traditional woman. But this guy wouldn't like be all for that. No. Let's see. I think it's a way to just put out some joy into the world. I think that's important right now. He concluded. The first issue of Wonder Woman depicts an Amazon named Emily mass murdering 19 men in a bar in Montana. In response to the mass murder, the government of the United States institutes a law called the Amazon Safety Act. It then deploys Sergeant Steele and a task force named AXE to round up and deport the various Amazons living in the United States. Yeah, and basically what they're trying to draw, and what Tom King is trying to equate here is placing like a quote unquote Amazon ban in the DCU that's comparable to the Muslim ban here in the States. Okay. Now, as everybody knows, of course, Amazons do have enhanced strength, and if gone down the wrong path, they can be a danger to society. Now, does that mean that you should like just blanketly expel all of them? No. But when you do have one that does lose control, you do have people who are going to be kind of like, okay, we need to protect ourselves, right? However, he appears to end up killing many of them on the pretext of them resisting detainment. Mm-hmm. Let's see. And again, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. I do thank you guys for all the likes and shares. That's appreciated. Let's see. All of this appears to be at the behest of someone named the Sovereign, who wield the lasso of lies. Now, according to Flash, this is, I guess, Tom King's way of making a caricature of Donald Trump in order to again push his narrative. Orange Man bad narrative. Now, also one of the things one of the other things that that Yellow Flash also pointed out is the guy actually looks more like Ron Paul. Now, for those of you who don't know who Ron Paul is, he's a former congressman out of Texas, a libertarian. He was in some respect you could almost say he was MAGA before there was such a thing as MAGA. Now, libertarians tend to be even more to the, in some respect, sort of right, like they don't believe in foreign engagement. They don't believe in getting involved in other countries' business. They do believe in putting the needs of American citizens first. They believe strongly in the foundations of the Constitution. Okay? So, but what do you make of Tom King's comments about women and being oppressed? I think he's full of it. Tom King's another one of these guys who's full of it. He's the type of guy that I would not be surprised, probably sitting in a bar somewhere with his buddies, and he says something stupid loud enough for somebody maybe 2 or 3 tables away hear it, get upset, then go over and sock him in the side of the head. That's kind of what my impression of Tom King is. So, anyways, I just we got some things to kind of go through real quick here. So now we're going to move on to the wrestling wrap up here real quick, and I'm going to just talk a little bit about and it has now been, of course, made official. Jade Cargill has officially signed with the WWE. She is now, she'll be, doing some training at the Performance Center. They're still deciding if they want to have her spend some time in NXT or have her debut on one of the main shows. There's also been some talk about the possibility of Cody Rhodes being transferred over to SmackDown. There was also a report recently over the weekend that also said that SmackDown would be possibly moving to USA from Fox or NBC Universal. So aside from that, of course, last night's Raw, in the opening match, Bronson Reed defeat Otis. Tommaso Ciampa defeat Ludwig Kaiser. Tegan Nox defeat Natalya. Dominic Mysterio retained the NXT North American title over Dragon Lee. Nia Jax defeated Zoe Stark. Drew McIntyre defeated Kofi Kingston. Now with that too, they're still kind of slowly working a heel turn with Drew McIntyre. Another point that kind of just was reminded of, even though he's not, also R-Truth, Ron Killings, has been cleared to return to wrestling. So you might see him on in the next few weeks or so. And the main event of the night saw the Judgment Day duo of Damian Priest and Finn Balor defend the unified tag titles over Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. So that all happened last night. So over the next couple weeks, of course, this Sunday, October the 1st, AEW will be having its Wrestle Dream, and then next week from this Saturday on October 7th, which also happens to be my birthday, my 40th birthday, by the way. Next Saturday the 7th, WWE will be holding its Fastlane event. So that's kind of what's going on over the next couple of weeks here. We'll, of course, talk more about what's happening on tomorrow night's Dynamite tomorrow. So with that now, we'll start to wind things down a bit here. As now, we will get ready to move on to this day in each history. Today being Tuesday, September 26th, 2023. Let's take a look back at this day in each history. History! All right, so first off, I'm going to head back 50 years ago today, back to 1973. As on this date in 1973, Sam Steamboat and Peter Maivia would defeat Ripper Collins and Ed Francis for the NWA Hawaii Tag Team Championship. On this date, 50 years ago today, Sam Steamboat and Peter Maivia would defeat Ripper Collins and Ed Francis for the NWA Hawaii Tag Team Championship. So there we go with that one. This date. Now moving ahead to 1983, on this date in 1983, 40 years ago today. On this date, 40 years ago today, Filmation's He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, sometimes simply referred to as just He-Man, would make its American first run syndication debut on this date back in 1983. Back on this date in 1983, 40 years ago today, Filmation's He-Man and the Masters of the Universe would premiere, would have its American first run syndication on this date back in 1983. Moving ahead now to 2008, I believe. On this date in 2008, I believe. That's 15 years. Yeah. This date, 2008. Let's see. Madhouse's Cheese Sweet Home would conclude its run on Japanese TV on this date back in 2008. So 15 years ago today, the final episodes of Cheese Sweet Home from Madhouse would finish their run on Japanese TV. Now, these were 104 episodes altogether, but they were like 3 minutes each. So on this date, 15 years ago, Cheese Sweet Home from Madhouse would conclude its run on Japanese TV. And finally, on this date 5 years ago today, I believe, 2018, date 5 years ago today, the 10th and final issue of Betty and Veronica Vixens would go on sale on newsstands on this date back 5 years ago today, back in 2018. $3.99 was the cover price. 28 pages. It featured, of course, Betty and Veronica with a story written by Jamie Lee Rotante, Sanya Anwar as the artist, Rachel Deering as the letterer, Elaine Unger as the colorist. So the 10th and final issue of Betty and Veronica Vixen from Archie Comics went on sale on this date 5 years ago today. So with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. We'll be back here, of course, tomorrow with more niche news. Also, on Friday, of course, RJ Carter from Critical Blast will be joining me. We'll be looking back to comics that went on sale back in December 1939. This week, we'll be looking at comics that went on sale from Centaur Comics. So I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow, as well every night and this Friday. So with that, I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.